Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, good morning, Madam Chair. It looks like we have enough people here to get our meeting started. So if you want to get it rolling, we're ready when you are.
Excellent. Well, it's great to see everybody virtually today, and thank you for your accommodations in changing from in-person to virtual. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio Open Meeting Law and Section 101.021, Codified Ordinance of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by roll call vote. Recusal from any case due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the beginning of the presentation. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, virtual attendants should keep their microphone on mute and then use the raised hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raised hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile versions and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking the raised hand icon again and muting your microphone. Call-in users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activities are being recorded via the WebEx platforms. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter submitted through proper channels have been considered. Proper channels for comments are sending an email to the landmarks@clevelandohio.gov email address with a comment or letter, calling and or leaving a message at 216-664-2532, or sending a letter or dropping off comments at City Hall located at 601 Lakeside Avenue, Suite 519. Communication with members of this body must follow proper channels for consideration. Any comments received by the stated deadline are collected by Landmark staff and disseminated to the commission members prior to the scheduled meeting.
All right, Madam Chair, I'll go over the virtual meeting rules and procedures. The chair will call each agenda item, and then each applicant will be invited to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the commission in order to facilitate a smooth presentation. Once the presentation is concluded, the chair will ask Landmark staff to summarize Design Review Committee recommendations and any public comments received. The deadline for public comment is noon on the Tuesday prior to any regularly scheduled Cleveland Landmarks Commission meeting. Any received comments are distributed to commission members prior to the meeting. Staff will also identify any members of the public present scheduled to speak. Public comment is allowed at the discretion of the chair and any individual providing comment is permitted 2 minutes to speak to the agenda item in which they have an interest. The chair will then request a recommendation from staff. The commission will then begin deliberations and project review. Any commission member except the chair may make a motion at any point after an agenda item has been called.
And we will call the June 13th, 2024 Landmarks Commission meeting to order. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Ms. Anderson,
Here.
Mr. Dreyer,
Here.
Mr. Dilick,
Here.
Councilmember Gray, Director Wong, Mr. Lozier,
Here.
Mr. Sandberry, Mr. Strickland,
Here.
Mr. Trosick,
Here.
Dr. Williams,
Here.
and Ms. Tratt.
Here.
All right, Madam Chair, we have quorum. In addition to the commission members, I believe we have Kevin Roberts here from the city's law department, and then Jessica Beam, Carl Brenges, and myself from the Landmarks office are also present on the meeting.
Excellent. Well, then we will begin our meeting with our certificates of appropriateness. We'd like to call the first applicant forward, or please announce yourself and then tell us about your project. The first applicant is located at 1797 West 31st Place, Brutus Residence, or Fratus, sorry.
Hi, this is Laura Freitas, and I'm the homeowner in this project. Our contractor, Scott McNulty, can't join the meeting, but I have him on the phone in case you have any questions that I can't answer. So why don't we go to the first picture? In response to feedback that we received when we presented our concept a couple of months ago, and in order to stick within our budget, we've made a few adjustments to our original ideas, and I'll try to highlight them briefly. Our objectives for the project remain the same. We need to reduce the heat in the second floor of the house, and we need to try to make it so that we can maintain the exterior of the house better as we get older. Next slide, please. What we'll refer to as the historic house are the sections that are directly adjacent to the sidewalk. There's also an addition that was built at the back of the house in 1999 and a detached garage that was built in 1995. All of these will be part of this project. Next slide. The most important element of our project is going to be the roof replacement. In response to suggestions that we got from this committee and the design review, we have abandoned our original idea of a metal roof. So the replacement product is going to remain asphalt shingles in a color that's just slightly lighter than what we currently have. Committee members had also seemed a little hesitant to allow the height of the roof to be raised by 5 inches in order to allow us to add several inches of isoboard insulation to the historic house and to vent some of the heat out of the soffits. So we've scaled back that plan slightly, and we'll be raising the roof to just 3 1/4 inches. Next slide. The half-round gutters, which we added to the house after we bought it, have never functioned properly in spite of repeated efforts to correct their pitch and to reduce the overflow from them. So we would like to replace them with standard K-style gutters and new downspouts. Next slide. When the historic sections of the house were rehabbed in 1990, no house wrap was used, and he also used a very cheap wood clapboard siding that has trouble holding paint, and it's prone to rot. So we propose removing all of the siding from the historic house and the addition and replacing it with hardy board, smooth clapboard with the same reveal and heritage color scheme that we currently have. The trim would be wood wrapped in aluminum in stock colors that match our current colors as closely as possible. Next slide. The windows that were used in the 1990 rehab have also failed to hold up or to perform well. So we'd like to replace all of the windows in the historic sections of the house with Anderson A-series windows, which are wood and fiberglass composite. That would be all of the windows except 2, which I'll talk about in a second. The sizes would remain very similar, but the small casement windows upstairs, an example of which you see on the right side of this drawing, would be replaced with 2 light awning windows instead in the cocoa bean color, which would be pretty similar to our current accent color. Now, the replacement of the 2 Gothic arch windows, which we'd originally hoped for, or a major rebuild, one of those is historic and one was built in 2003. That has proved to be beyond our budget for this project, but they will both be repaired to try to stabilize them. Next slide, please. Originally, we'd had a grander scheme for the garage to try to make the roof overhang a better complement to the house, but we have needed to scale back to a simple roof replacement this time and just wrapping the cedar gutter boards with aluminum to solve a carpenter bee problem. So the garage is also basically just stabilizing. And that's the extent of the work we're proposing for this project. Is there anything that we need to clarify?
Well, thank you for your presentation. We're going to just move quickly to hear what the committee said about your project and then staff's, and then we'll ask you any questions that we have momentarily. So I'll hand over to the staff for the Design Review Advisory Committee recommendations.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. The Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee saw this project last week at its June 6th, 2024 meeting. We did not have quorum, but the committee was very supportive. They appreciated the applicant's consideration of all the comments that they made and that you guys made when it came through for concept review, and we're very happy with the final proposal. They felt that it met the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, and the general consensus was that it should be approved, although, like I said, there was no quorum, so there was no official vote.
Okay, thank you. And Landmark staff recommendations. If Carl,
Can
if
you
you
hear
are
me
speaking,
now? Here we go.
we can hear you now.
Okay. Staff would like to commend the owners for, even though they had to scale back, they have done a sensitive renovation to the exterior. Hopefully in the future, they'll be able to do some of the other parts that they want to do. So we are in agreement with the committee that this is appropriate and would support the changes that they have made. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Brunges. Then we'll open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. I guess I will start us off. I just would like to commend the owner and give you our appreciation for listening to our comments and but still doing a very sensitive restoration. So I'm in full support of this project. Mr. Lozier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to commend the owner for exactly what you had described, and also for presenting such a clear and concise package. I think it's extremely easy to understand, what is in the project this go around. So thank you for that, and I want to echo Ms. Trott and staff, and I'm in full support of what's being presented here. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Lozier. Mr. Strickland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also am in support of this project. I think that the applicant has taken our comments and design review comments into consideration, and totally supportive of the modifications they've made. In reference to the wood trim that they are going to wrap in aluminum, I would just advise to make sure that the trim is properly treated. prior to being wrapped to avoid any condensation from the wrapping deteriorating the wood prematurely. But other than that, very much in support. Thank you.
Great recommendation, Mr. Strickland. Thank you. Hearing fairly consistent support, would someone like to make a motion? Mr. Lozier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Madam Chair, I second the motion.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? All right, not hearing any. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer,
Yes.
Mr. Dulick,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Sambry,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes.
All right, Madam Chair, the motion to approve as presented passes unanimously.
Excellent. Well, congratulations and good luck with your project.
Great, thank you. And I have made note of the comment about verifying that the trim is treated so that we don't have a condensation problem. Very much appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll then move on to our next applicant located at 17720 Purtis Avenue, Purtis Community Middle School signage. I'd like to welcome the applicant. Please unmute your mic, announce yourself, and tell us about your project.
Madam Chair, I'm not seeing them in the list of attendees unless they're one of the call-in users. So I guess if they don't show up here, I would recommend moving them to the end of the agenda and recalling them before we move on from certificates of appropriateness review.
All right. Is the applicant, and I'm sorry, I don't have the agenda open in front of me. Can you just announce who the applicant on the application was?
Sure, we had it as a Brilliant Electric Sign Company. It's case 24047, St. Patrick Church, School
Is there a
Cemetery and
person?
accessory. Yes, should be Laura Wilma.
Is Laura with us today?
Sounds like a seance.
All right, then we will move this. We'll move to our next applicant, and then we'll come back to this at the end of the certificates of appropriateness. All right, we'll move to the next applicant located at 2980 Ripley Road, renovations.
That is me. I'm one of the call-in users, Jackson Curry. And I brought my realtor and designer, Jeff Steinberg, with me for the presentation.
Welcome.
Thank you. This is Jeff Steinberg. And let's start with the first slide. So this is the current condition of the house, obviously run down, boarded up windows, missing windows, and so forth. Next slide. Changes to the exterior, the boarded door and the boarded window to the left of the picture are going to be completely removed, and siding will cover that. And the awning will be removed as well. Next, please. The garage roof is going to be replaced. The garage will be painted and a new garage door installed. Next slide. Awnings are going to be removed. Bushes trimmed, weeds removed. Front door and screen door are going to be painted the color of trim, and the shutters will be replaced due to the comments of the design committee. Next, please. These will be the shutters added. We're going to paint them in the Mountain Road color. We've chosen 3 colors through the Sherwin-Williams Historic profiles. And this again is because the design committee, a couple of members were looking for 3 colors. So we've gone ahead and done that. Next slide. Side of the home, the awning is going to be removed, and you'll see at the upper top right of the picture, that is a square hole in the wall. A window will be placed in that, and again, the awning will be removed. Next slide. This is the actual side door that we're using. Next slide. These are the windows that we're going to be using. Next slide. The design committee initially did not like our first colors. They thought it was too dark. So we've changed the siding on the home and the garage to the Rushing River, and then the trim work on the home and the garage will be the Grecian Ivory. Again, those are all 3 in the same color palette. Next slide. Roofing for the garage will be using the Landmark shingles. Next, please. This is the landscaping currently. We've cleared out what we're going to clear out. We're going to leave this as is, but before the deal closes, we are going to rebuild this little brick planter that you can see in the left picture. We're just going to use the same materials. We're just going to tighten it up, make it look a little bit better, and we will clean up that raised planter and get the additional weeds and so forth that are in there. Next, please. Location is obvious. Next, please. And then there is a picture of the floor plan, windows, doors, etc. And I believe that is my last slide. Oh, yes, those are the condition of the current windows, which again will be replaced with the windows that we have submitted. Next slide. That is the awning, part of one of the 3 awnings that will be removed. We were trying to show you that the awning is pretty damaged. It's mostly underneath, but there's holes in it. It's all rusted out. And in our meeting with the design committee, everyone pretty much recommended that the shutters should go. Next slide. Next slide. Again, this is someone had requested that we see what the other homes on the street look like. And there you have it. Thank you.
Right, thank
The
you
other
for the
homes on
present.
the street is, sorry.
Go
The
ahead.
other homes on the street is really to speak to the awning removal and the window choices. These are all neighboring homes on the same street that are also sans awning and with windows in similar style and material to those that we are planning on.
All right, thank you for that additional information. We will then move to the Design Review Advisory Committee recommendations.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, so I gotta hit like 5 or 6 buttons to be able to speak. Technology, yay. This was seen by the Greater Cuyahoga Valley Historic Design Review Advisory Committee on May 21st. They made the recommendation to approve the certificate of appropriateness to remove the first floor awnings and to replace the shutters on the front in kind. There was some discussion about the color choice and to keep or replace the screen doors. I know there was some discussion about removing them, putting them back, and then the window replacement. They said that the vinyl double glazed in the cream color is okay, and then the garage repairs as presented. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And staff recommendations?
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. The existing windows on this home, which was built in 1959 at the tail end of the Ludlow Historic District's period of significance, appear to be original, some of them being covered by aluminum turtle track storms. As typical, we would like to see upgraded window replacements on the front of the home, so either fiberglass composite or aluminum clad wood. Any muntins on those elevations, we'd like to see replicated in the new windows and expressed on the exterior of the glass, not sandwiched between the panes. We also feel that the door should not be painted the same color as the siding. It's an opportunity to announce the door and with the use of some color so that it stands out from the siding and from the rest of the building. We also wanted to confirm that there was no intention or implied approval to paint the masonry. Painting the aluminum siding is fine with us, but the brick should remain unpainted brick. Staff doesn't necessarily, or we don't agree with the local committee comment about needing a third color. Given the air of this home, 2 colors would have been more appropriate. We also think that there are probably some more appropriate color choices. So we recommend looking at the Sherwin-Williams or Benjamin Moore historic color palettes. And then finally, it sounds like, the awnings are going to be removed. So we're happy to see the shutters being replaced. The local committee was also presented with some information that there was a large hole in the awning, but site visit by staff didn't indicate any such damage. So we were curious about that. And then we just like some clear information about the proposed window replacement windows so that we can confirm that the size and configuration of the windows, particularly the picture window and the ones that frame it on the first floor, want to make sure that the size and configuration of those does not change. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll then open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Who would like to start us off? Or did staff have some additional pictures to go through?
Yeah.
Or just
No,
going back through, going back, okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Mr. Strickland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just curious to see if the applicant has a response to the report from the staff with regarding their recommendations for window material and any muttons that may exist on the existing windows be replicated, and confirming that the size and configuration of the picture window will, with the replacement, will be unaltered.
Yes,
I
we are
don't
planning
believe.
for the Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
No, go ahead.
We are planning for the picture window in the front to be unaltered. We did hear that recommendation from the design committee, and yeah, we're going to keep it the same. And the windows that we're planning on using are aluminum half screen fiberglass windows.
Okay, so that seems to be consistent with the staff recommendation in terms of materiality. Do you agree, Dan?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, we are fine with not painting the front door and screen door the same color as the trim. And we are not going to touch the brick.
Okay, very good. And so Dan recommended a different historic color palette. And so I'd recommend working with staff on final color choice.
The three colors that we chose did come from the historical color palette as requested.
So Dan, I think staff would have to clarify whether the historic colors that have been selected are appropriate, or if you'd like to see a different selection.
Yeah, through the chair, staff is happy to work with the applicant on kind of coming up with the final color selections, so we can take a closer look at all that and work with the applicant to ensure that they're appropriate.
Right.
And we are certainly happy to work with the staff to finalize color choices.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the applicant for taking on this project. From the looks of things, this house has been sitting vacant for over a decade. So seeing it being revitalized will be a welcome sight for the entire neighborhood. I'm glad to hear that you are not painting the brick. There's been a tendency to do that these days, and I'm glad to see it's going to remain unpainted. I'm fine with the two colors. This house is fairly straightforward. There's not a lot of detail, so two colors should work. Again, work with staff on that. And I do strongly recommend painting the front door a different color, as long as it's not black, because that would not be consistent with a house of that vintage. But I just wanted to commend you for taking this on, and good luck to you with your project.
Thank you,
Those
Ms.
are my
Anderson.
comments. Thank you.
Excellent. And Mr. Lozier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The one clarification, I guess that wasn't addressed yet it appears to be there are horizontal muntins on the windows. I think the one photo of the existing conditions looking from the inside, you can see a horizontal both at the upper and lower sashes. And then on this front elevation picture, you can kind of see those muntins behind the on the upper windows behind the storms. So I would seeing that as those exist today, I would like to see those muntins replicated or included in the new windows and attached to the face of the windows, not buried within the double panes of glass.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lozier. Other questions and comments from the committee? I'm sorry, commission. All right, not seeing or hearing any. Would someone like to make a motion? Mr. Lozier?
I can make a motion to approve as presented with the requirement to add the horizontal muntins to the windows where they occur today.
All right. And would you take a recommendation for working with staff for final colors?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lozier. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Madam Chair, I'll
I'll
second.
All right. We have 2 seconds. We have Mr. Trosik and Ms. Anderson. Any further discussion?
I just wanted, I'm sorry. I just wanted to state, I don't believe that there are buttons on the windows. I believe those are the screens. They're not lined up correctly, but we'll work with you guys to do whatever needs to be done. Yeah, I think those are screens, but
Okay. Well, then I think it would be appropriate for maybe a more detailed look at this with staff to finalize that detail. But I think we've left it so where they exist, we'd like to see them. Where they don't, they are not required. So I will ask Mr. Lozier, will you amend your motion to say work with staff to finalize locations for those buttons?
Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Trosik, Ms. Anderson, do you agree with that recommendation? For amendment?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
All right, excellent. Then Mr. Musson, please call roll.
And thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer,
Yes.
Mr. Dulick,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Sambry,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trosik,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Ms. Trout.
Yes,
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
excellent. Well, congratulations and good luck with your project. And staff will reach out to you offline to finalize those details.
perfect. Thank you guys so much.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
We'll then move on to our next applicant located at 10834, 10924 Grantwood Avenue, demolition.
Hi, this is Jillian Blino. I'm with the Demolition Bureau with the Department of Building and Housing. So I am coming back with 2 of the 3 proposed demolitions on Grantwood. One of them did get approved, and that came down within the last 3 weeks. 10821 Grantwood was demolished maybe like 3 weeks ago. So the remaining is 10834 Grantwood and 10924 Grantwood. So I will go through the presentation again. You can keep going. So both of these are still in state of Ohio forfeiture, so I'll get a little bit into that. This is 10834 Grantwood. It's the front elevation. It is much more overgrown now. The front yard is a lot more unkempt than it was last fall. So the owner of this property is JZM Realty LLC. It's an LLC based out of Chicago. They purchased it in 2008. It did forfeit to the state of Ohio in 2018, which essentially means that the county foreclosed on the taxes, on the back taxes, that the property went to sheriff's sale twice and it did not get sold. So the state of Ohio now has the right to transfer the property to another owner or entity. But ultimately JZM Realty is still the owner. So like they could come tomorrow, pay the back taxes and have full control over the building. So we haven't had any complaints on this since I believe it was 2019. It was originally condemned in August of 2012. And since then we received 6 formal complaints. But like I said, our last complaint on this was in our last formal complaint, I should say, was in 2019. We do receive calls from a neighbor who is catty corner to 10821 Grantwood, regularly. She calls in every couple of weeks about it. We have boarded this up 6 times. So from what I could tell, it's been vacant since 2009. It is, yeah, it's on the south side of Grantwood between East 105 and Parkwood, south of Drexel and north of Tacoma. That's just a little aerial of where it is. I think get a little bit closer on the next one, yeah. So yeah, all of the neighboring properties are residential. And then I just go through some photos here. Looks a little bit worse now, a little bit soggier, if you will. You know, this one has been in forfeiture for 6 years, which means it's essentially been available for rehabilitation. And nobody has really come forward to do that. There were 2 no, I don't know if that was, no, that was the other one. That was not this one. Yeah, I don't really have too much else. Well, you know, raise it and then backfill, seed and straw. Like I said, easily obtainable. What we typically see is that properties that remain forfeited to the state for a significant length of time indicate like a lack of interest from public and private investors. So these ones are really kind of stuck in real estate limbo. I mean, nobody's really doing anything with them, even though they've been available. So this one is a bit further down the street. I don't have a current photo, but the front porch structure is completely gone. The roof structure is gone. This one is also in state forfeiture, was forfeited in May of 2023. The owner is John H. Billingsley. He's owned it since 1981. We just recently boarded this last month in May. Somebody's working on the property next door. Estimate that this has been vacant since 2012. It does look like the owner attempted to sell this in 2021, 2022, but it never went forward. Yeah, same block as 10834 Grantwood, just a little bit further down, closer to Parkwood. Some aerial views. So the tree has been removed, and like I said, the front porch is gone. The front porch roof structure is gone. You can't access the building from the front. I have not been back inside either of these. And again, just the same as before. This one hasn't been forfeited as long, but they both look pretty worse for wear. I mean, it's kind of obvious when you drive down the street that they're vacant. You know, there are some vacant properties that don't appear vacant, and these 2 are not 2 of them. So I'm happy to answer questions or.
All right, we will then move to landmark staff recommendations.
Right, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to note that these did not go back to the local design review committee since they were last tabled by the commission. So it's kind of a continuation of those previous cases. Landmark staff essentially has the same comments about both of the Grantwood demolition proposals. Our feeling is that the condition has not changed significantly in the past 6 months or even the past few years. While we understand that these homes create a visual nuisance for the neighboring residents, we have a greater concern about the further loss of historic structures in this district and the destabilizing effect demolition in our district's causes. We consider this a threatened historic district at this point. We don't want to see it take a similar path to the Miles Park Historic District, which now has seen more demolitions and loss since it was established as a historic district than it has buildings still standing. As you can see from the aerial we've lost a lot of homes in this historic district. This image does not reflect the latest demos on Grantwood and Parkwood that happened just within the last few weeks or maybe months. So you can kind of see there's dates on some of those. Those are ones that we have seen recently. The other ones, occurred before it was a district. So we are seeing a lot of proposals for rehabilitation coming out of this district. New windows, you guys have seen quite a few of those come before the commission. And then there's some new construction just going up east of the district's boundary. So that there is activity in this area. We have concerns about the demos moving forward and then the vacant lots ending up in the city's land bank, ultimately becoming side yards expansions that ultimately prohibits any future development and building on the site. So, where we could have a good infill single family home, we end up with, a lot split down the middle that, the neighboring houses each gets half of. Our feeling is that if these homes are truly an imminent threat to life, safety, and or property, the chief building official can declare them to be an emergency forthwith demo, which would not require the approval of the Cleveland Landmarks Commission. But until they reach that point, staff is still hopeful that the buildings have a future and would recommend against approving a certificate of appropriateness for their demolition. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for the staff recommendations. We'll then open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Based on what I've heard in these meetings in the past, of course, we've reviewed these properties in the past and we've had site visits there. My understanding is that the Cuyahoga County Land Bank will not accept properties in the historic districts. Is that correct?
That is what I understand, yes.
Do we know why they have that prohibition on incorporating properties in the historic districts into the land bank?
From what I understand, they think it's difficult and more, and less cost effective to attempt to, maintain these properties to the historic standards is what I understand. I don't think it's like a formal on paper rule that they don't take them. I think that is a business choice that they make. I don't want to speak for them. That's just kind of what we understand. Because they do demolitions as well throughout the county and throughout the city of Cleveland, and they never do a demolition in a design review district or in a landmark district.
Okay, thank you. The reason I'm bringing this up is the state of Ohio recognizing that there is a housing shortage across the state. They have passed legislation to create a fund called the Welcome Home Ohio Fund. And there's grants available for rehabilitation and tax credits available. These are only available for properties in land banks, or I can't find it here, but that's basically it. And the nonprofit organization can utilize these funds to rehab the properties, and once rehabbed, they must be sold to buyers who make no more than 80% of the median income. Which I think these would be a good candidate for accessing a program like that. So, it's a little frustrating to see this and to see ways of turning these things around that are just not available to us.
Yeah, I largely agree. We don't, our bureau is really focus on demolition, and when we get busy, it's really all that we can focus on. But we try to be cautious of what we bring down and what we don't. It's frustrating for us when we see properties that aren't in the worst condition, but are essentially just kind of existing without anybody coming to save it. Fumiko's has been really outspoken about, these remaining, but I don't really see them coming forward to do any rehab for them. I think the Make It Home Ohio program is for occupied forfeited properties. I don't know if that's I know there's can't remember unless I'm confusing it with another program. But I know that there is a program that's I think slowly rolling out for people who are still living in their state of Ohio state of Ohio forfeited lands properties that they're still occupied. But I don't know much about the program.
This is a new program, and from what I've been reading, it doesn't sound like it's for properties that are already occupied.
Okay. Yeah, we don't know much about programs, because we don't do the rehab
you're in
ourselves.
demolition.
Yeah.
I'm just bringing this up. I
Yeah,
think
we certainly do try to steer people the right way. I mean, I had talked to somebody last week. I said, here are the programs that I know will give you a loan. But we try to connect them with resources if we can, but those folks have to be willing to take out a loan, to be frank, or they have to have the capital up front. And these properties need a bit more capital to, maintain the historic integrity of them. So I think that's a challenge, like right off the rip for some people.
Yeah, that's part of the reason I'm bringing this up, is that you are correct. These properties require more capital because there are historic elements which must be maintained or restored. And there's, unlike, some other historic districts like University Circle or, in Ohio City, there's a limit on how much money somebody can spend on these properties to make them economically viable. That's why, seeing that there is, grants available and tax credits available, and we're unable to access them, is a pretty frustrating situation here.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely be nice if those properties were advertised via like a yard sign, maybe for some investors. We have a lot of folks come in and say, how can I get access to properties that are available or condemned properties? And I say, the only properties that are realistically available to you are those that are in the state of Ohio forfeiture. And I really kind of push that for them to look at it. I send them the auditor's website. I say anything that says the state of Ohio. From what I understand, the land bank charges like $5,000 to do that transfer. I'm not sure if that's like a flat fee across the board for every single parcel or property. But yeah, when I talk to people who are interested, I really do push state of Ohio forfeited lands on them, because a lot of those properties really aren't in the worst shape and they are, attainable.
I think the state of Ohio forfeiture properties is kind of opaque for most buyers, and these properties in particular are not going to be attractive to a private developer. I just think that there isn't any upside. They're in too bad a shape and they require too much investment. So it would probably have to be, a nonprofit utilizing a program with, some write down money, like basically that's what this looks like. I don't really see for-profit developers waltzing in here. So that's why, like I say, I think there's probably a way to do this. I know that Fumiko probably would like to see this happen. I recognize that they might not have the capacity. I'm just bringing up a lot of, things that I've been thinking about with these properties.
Yeah. Yeah, these are tough ones for sure.
So those are basically my comments. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to note that looks like we have Ava Schmidt from Famicos here, so she might be helpful to the conversation. So I guess if it pleases the chair to recognize Ms. Schmidt, she may be able to shed some light on some things or offer a perspective.
Now I'm muted. Welcome, Ms. Schmidt. Do you have any feedback for us?
I think I can add a little bit of context to the situation that these properties are in right now. So my name's Ava. We have been in conversations with the Demo Bureau for a long time now. Grateful that they've
Ava, you're kind of breaking up, coming in and out. Is there, I guess, an adjustment you could make, or maybe it's just on my end? I'm having a tough time understanding.
No, it's also going in and out of my side. We'd love to hear what you.
Does it
That's a
sound
little
better now?
That's better.
All right, I apologize. Please stop me if you can't hear clearly. I'll try to speak slowly. We been looking for solutions for Grantwood allotments. We are concerned with the amount of demolitions happening in the historic districts in our service area. We have had a strategy for many years, starting in the Magnolia Way Park district with the Heritage Lane homes on East 105th Street and moving to Ashbury. Since the Ashbury Magnolia Way Park district has seen some market stabilization, we've moved north. It's been a bit more promising. Sorry, I see a comment. You still can't hear me.
It's just going in and out a little bit, but if you continue talking, I think if we can just stay consistently near the mic, that would be helpful. But we're able to hear the majority of what you're saying. So you said you've been in consistent contact, and now that there's been some stabilization in the Magnolia Park area.
Yes, so our strategy is to continue moving our efforts here in the east of our district. Our availability, we do about 2 to 4 housing full rehabs a year, and we have. It's our intention to move efforts into the Grantwood allotments neighborhood. However, we have about 8 houses still to go in the East Boulevard. I think that our efforts in the future will benefit Grantwood allotments, although we know right now rehabs aren't appealing to developers. We've taken local contractors to the houses. We've done research. We've been in contact with the land bank, also trying to research the Welcome Home Ohio opportunity, but unfortunately, no developers are interested in taking on the houses. I do think there is a positive future for Grantwood, especially with the investment going into the Corey Methodist Church on the corner. See, is this parcel highlighted in orange on the screen here? But given where it stands right now, don't have a solution at the Those are my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Schmidt. We appreciate the feedback. We'll then open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments, for additional questions and comments. Mr. Lozier, did you have your hand up earlier? I'm sorry if I missed it.
I did, but I really appreciate Ms. Anderson's comments. I guess my own would be, following staff's recommendation. I have extreme issues with continuing demolition in this neighborhood based on the number of homes that have already been demolished, and I don't see myself being able to support the demolition of these two structures at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Lozier. I would echo, what you had just said, along with Ms. Anderson and staff, that these structures, albeit they're not in excellent condition, we've seen far worse get rehabbed, and I am concerned also with the district, as staff has stated, so I am not in support of the demolition of these structures. Other feedback from other commission members? Mr. Strickland? Mr. Strickland, you are muted if you are talking.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm not in favor of approving demolition of these structures. I would suggest that demolition funds not be used to take down these houses, but some funding be diverted to make sure that they're stabilized, especially in terms of the roof and any open windows. That would be a better use of the funds, and try to maintain these homes until there's funds available for rehabilitation. So I'm not in favor of demolition.
All right, thank you, Mr. Strickland, for that feedback. Very fairly consistent response from the commission. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll move to deny the demolition of, I'm assuming that we'll have to do this in two motions since it's two cases.
I would
So
agree.
I would move to deny approval of the demolition of 10-834 Grantwood Avenue.
All right, we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Dulick,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray, Councilmember Gray, are you there? If you are, you're muted. All right, moving on to Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Sambry,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trosick,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes.
All right, Madam Chair, the motion to deny passes unanimously. And
Okay, then we will move on to the next case within, next structure within that case. Would someone like to make a motion?
Madam Chair, my hand is still up. I would move to deny approval of the demolition of 10-924 Grantwood Avenue.
All right, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Or we have a second. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Musson, please call roll.
thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yeah. Yes.
Mr. Dulick,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray, Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Sambury, Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tresick,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Ms. Trout.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion to deny passes unanimously.
All right. Well, as we said, we do feel that these structures are important in contributing, and we hope that we can find a better solution for these properties versus demolition. We will then move on to our next applicant located at 1077 East 97th Street.
Hey, this is Jillian Still, with the Demo Bureau. So this is a proposed nuisance abatement demolition at 1077 East 97th Street. Keep going. There we go. This is a photo of the front elevation. It's a single family. Just got some information about the lot size. The zoning use is limited single family, which I'm not terribly familiar with. And it is in the Glenville neighborhood, and it's in Ward 9. Can go ahead. So just some background information. The owner is currently Joy Gaines. She's been the owner since 2020. It transferred to Joy upon her mother Ann's death. I believe Ann passed away in April of 2020. So there are no legal issues. The property has been condemned and we're prepared to move forward. We did complete an asbestos survey on the property. So the property has been condemned since June 18th, 2018. We have received 3 formal complaints in Acela since 2015, and we have boarded it up 4 times since 2015. Some background on what we believe is the vacancy, the length of the vacancy. So we believe it's been vacant since at least October 2015 when the fire occurred at the residence. Since the fire occurred, the property was managed by Five Brothers Asset Management Solutions, but I contacted them to find out some information and to see if I could get in contact with the owner, and they ceased management in November 2020. The owners did attempt to appeal the condemnation in 2018 or 2019, but they were denied. Their intent was to raise the structure, so I'm not sure why they attempted to appeal the condemnation. It was a bit of an odd choice. I think they just weren't sure what to do. Go forward. So just a little about the site location, situated on the east side of East 97th. It's east of Parkside and west of East 98th, south of Parkgate and Thorn. Thorn dead ends into East 97th, and on the larger scale, it's between St. Clair and Superior. So all the adjacent uses were single family residential. There are some doubles throughout the neighborhood. I know like in the rear, down a couple, there's a double, but some of them are hard to see when there's a double. You kind of really got to be looking for the doubles to find them. But for the most part, it's single family residential throughout. And then these are some photos of the interior, or the exterior and the interior. So you can just go through these. So there was like I said, a really bad fire. I'm not sure if Anne was living in the home at the time of the fire. I do know, from reading her obituary that she traveled to and from Cleveland and Connecticut to visit her grandchildren. So I am not sure how frequently she was in Cleveland or in this house. The fire was pretty extensive, as you can tell. The owners did want to, demolish the property, but they were denied, and I'll let Jessica and Dan get into a little bit into that after this. So our plan would be to raise the structure, backfill seed and straw. So the property was listed for sale in September of 2023, but the listing was removed on December 4th of 2023. I did send a letter via regular USPS. We do a lot of certified mailings in building and housing, but I just sent a letter, USPS, attempting to make contact with the owner. Usually when I send letters, I am a little bit aggressive and I say, if we demolish this property, we are going to attempt to collect against any assets you have, which is true, in the hopes that we will hear from someone. But in this instance, we did not. So I don't know if I have any more slides after this, but I know at the design review, they had a question about, does this city, kind of asking if we kind of have like these level of condemnations, whether the property was structurally safe. We don't know. Like our inspectors really don't, unless it's an obvious building that's an obvious going to collapse, which those buildings become CBO emergencies. But in general, our condemnations don't really tell you the level of deterioration of the structure. And we also don't list the cause of the condemnation or the reason for the condemnation. So our condemnation notices don't say, oh, there was a fire here. They just list all of the things that are wrong and all of the violations in the property. So those were some of the questions they had at design review. But other than that, I'll let Landmarks make their comments.
Excellent. Thank you for the presentation. Mr. Musson?
Actually, I'll
Or-
take this one.
All right. Ms. Veem?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project was reviewed by the Greater Northeast Historic Design Review Advisory Committee on June 4th. In the meeting, we did discuss the site visit that occurred at the property on the day before, I believe, June 3rd, but we were not able to go inside. I did reference the 2016 demolition that went through Landmarks process that was ultimately denied. And the committee did discuss, as Ms. Bellino mentioned, the insurance damage. If there's a report on the fire from 2015 that showed the level of damage or if it was salvageable at that time. The committee did make a recommendation to approve the demolition, citing the disrepair for the past 8 years, the safety hazard with the mold and fire damage throughout the home and the likelihood of being saved, and noting that new construction would still go through Landmarks to review as it is in a historic district.
All right. Thank you for that recommendation and Landmark staff recommendation.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Like the previous two cases, the condition of this building has not changed significantly since the commission last saw the demo request closing in on 10 years ago. In this case, the property taxes are up to date. So there may be an owner who's more engaged than one of the properties in state forfeiture, and there's no real owner to engage with regarding a property. So we have, I guess we have some hopes. There's, someone's actively paying the taxes, so that's a good sign. The loss of this house would create the only missing tooth on this block. We've seen it time and time again. It's kind of how it starts. There's one demo and then another, and then we have more missing teeth than buildings. So like the previous cases, this house seems stable and hasn't changed much since the fire. So we recommend denial of the certificate of appropriateness for demolition. If this is a true life, health, and safety emergency, the city has alternative paths forward to deal with that. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Musson. We'll then open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I missed out on some of Mr. Musson's what he had to say because the audio faded in and out. It doesn't sound like any real assessment has been done to, determine if there's enough structural integrity to this house in order to, turn it around and renovate it. I don't know if when the fire happened, if the insurance company does something like that, but I just want to put that out there. Does anybody know of any structural assessment that has been done on this house in the last 9 years?
No, we don't have any information like that. The owner's plans were to raise the property. So I do not believe those plans have changed. I think they attempted to sell it last year because they were denied the demolition and they kind of just walked away from it. But I mean, the owner's intent was to raise the property. So, it's not actively listed. So I think, the owner has not paid the taxes this year. So this is the first year that they haven't been paid. I mean, they obviously still have time to pay them. So my assumption is the owner will walk away. She lives in Connecticut with her family. So yeah, I don't think that we'll see anything further happen from the current owner.
Okay, I appreciate that information. The property was listed. Let's put it this way. I'm going to call it a real half-hearted attempt at marketing the property. It was listed, they call it a limited service listing. So basically, this company, uploads some photos and some verbiage online, but no active marketing is being done by anybody other than maybe the owner. And I doubt whether the owner, especially the way you've described the situation, I doubt whether the owner has the ability or the connections to, really try to make this, attractive to a possible rehabber. So yeah, it was listed, but again, I would call it a real half-hearted attempt. Probably they did the listing, because they were getting some pressure from the city regarding the property. I did notice that over the years, on several occasions, they did try to get a demo permit, and like you say, they were denied. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Any other questions and comments from the commission? And I would echo what has been said. I'm very interested to hear why this building, if there's a structural report related to this building, and why demolition has just been the obvious choice. It does look like there's obvious fire damage, but is it surface damage or structural damage is really the question that I also have. If it's structural damage, then I would support the demolition if it's not something that can be addressed and fixed. But I'm not seeing or hearing that. It seems fairly surface just from the photographs. So at this time, I'm not in support of the demolition. Other feedback from the commission? Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to add a comment because was called to our attention that the taxes are current, and although the owner is in Connecticut, the fact that she's being responsible and taking care of back taxes suggests to me that she may not be interested in walking away from the property. And I think it's worth the effort to find out more about any major structural damage to see if there is the hope of saving this building.
So we do not assess the structure for the structural integrity. That would have to be something that the owner decides to do. And like I said, I did attempt to reach out to her. I don't have contact information for her. All I have is an address.
Okay.
I did send her a letter 2 months ago now, and I didn't receive an email. I didn't receive a phone call. Like I said, that letter was saying, like, if I demo this house, I'm gonna pursue collections against you. And I mean, we didn't hear anything.
Okay, but the letter was not returned. It is a good address.
It did not get returned, no.
Okay. Would it be worth the effort to send a second letter?
I can certainly try, but I mean, again, I think that the owners, their goal was to raise the structure. That was their plan. And they were denied that. So I think that was their plan. I don't think that they have any desire to rehab the structure. And based with their lack of communication, I tried to find a phone number for her, but I couldn't. Just kind of did some Googling. She is a real person. She exists. But she's just not local. I assume she grew up in this house.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Anderson, did you have additional feedback?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Real quick, in the testimony, you mentioned that there was a property management group of some sort that was managing it until 2020 or 2021. If that entity is still around, I wonder if they have contact information for the owner that they would be willing to share. And at this point, they they're not working with her, so they wouldn't be, the conduit. So they might be willing to make that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they were contracted with Anne or Joy. So that contract ceased about 6 months after Anne died. So I don't know who they had a contract with. Whether it was Anne or Joy, or if it, maybe they stopped paying and Joy wasn't willing to do it, or whether Joy was always paying. I'm just not sure. I don't know if they would give us information. I can certainly ask, but I don't know that they would give contact information or who they might have contact information for.
Yeah, and I don't know that either, but sometimes in my course of doing real estate, I've been able to contact people like that and at least get put in the right direction.
All right, thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Musson, I see your hand up.
It was a surrogate hand for Mr. Brunges who wanted to make a few comments, but yes, the technical fun continues. So.
Okay. Mr. Brundes, would you like to make a comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I remember this case from 2016, and some of us who are on the commission were here for this as well. It was the mother who was asking to demolish the house because it was outside of her ability to fix it up. But as a part of the discussion, and I remember getting the daughter, Joy, there on the phone to have the discussion. And I believe we have the minutes here from the meeting that the property was supposed to be given to Famicos with cash to assist in stabilizing at that time. And why that never happened in between 2016 and the mother's passing, I don't know. It kind of fell off the radar. But apparently, it just seems like the daughter is holding on to this, whether it's sentimental, whatever the reasons are. But since we've not been able to have contact or do any contact with her, I think there's going to have to be more attempts and to understand what her intent is. But as mentioned, the taxes are up until current, they're paid. And that's better than we've seen with a lot of different buildings like this. So just want to remind us if anybody else remembers going through this at that time. Thank you.
And I just lost her name. The representative from Famicos, is she still on that? Ms. Schmidt?
Hi, I've switched to my phone, so hopefully you can hear me better. But yes, we have to do more research. Myself and my real estate director, Khalid Hawthorne, neither of us were at Famicos at that time, and we're not familiar with what went down with this property. We're happy to look more into it. But again, it's tough. Most properties in our service area, we try to take on as many as we can. But as I mentioned, we can we typically service 2 to 4 houses a year. And we do have a pipeline of houses that we need to address.
Okay. So I think we have two options here. Either I think we need to move forward with a motion, or we should table this to see and give Miko some time to look into this. But I would, for the commission, I think I'd like to try to get us moving forward. And would recommend either one of those options. Would someone like to make a motion? Mr. Strickland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would put forth a motion to deny of a certificate of appropriateness for the demolition of the home at 1077 East 97th Street.
All right, thank you, Mr. Strickland. Ms. Anderson, I see your hand up.
Are we
If you're not-
tabling or are we denying?
Mr. Strickland just put a motion to deny.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Anderson. Sorry, didn't mean to put you in that position. I just saw your hand go up. So we have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any further conversation? Okay, not seeing any. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Right, thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I'm sorry. Yes, I was muted.
Okay. Mr. Dreyer?
Yes.
Mr. Dulick?
Yes.
Mr. Lozier?
Yes.
Mr. Sambry? Mr. Strickland?
Yes.
Mr. Trasick?
Yes.
Dr. Williams?
Yes.
And Ms. Trout?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion to deny the certificate of appropriateness passes unanimously.
All right. Well, I think this is another structure, especially on that street, that, you know, we as a commission value and hope that we can find alternate options to help this, to save this house.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. We will announce one last time our second applicant, and Mr. Musson, can you help me? I don't have the agenda in front of me, but the applicant was from Brilliant Sign.
Yes, that's correct, Madam Chair. It was case 24-047 for Puritas Community Middle School. Laura Wyoma from Brilliant Electric Sign was going to do the presentation, but if we have anyone representing that project at 17720 Puritas Avenue, this is, I guess, last call.
All right.
Not seeing anyone.
Okay. Then do we table that case? Or just
Well, we can't table
take no
without
action?
their consent, so I think we just take no action. Staff, yeah, essentially it'll be postponed, but I don't think we need to take action on it.
Okay, perfect. Then we will postpone that one to a future date when the applicant is in with us. That concludes our certificates of appropriateness then, and we'll move on to concept reviews. We'll begin with our first applicant located at 3349 West 125th Street, Global Ambassadors Language Academy renovation.
Hi, my name is Julia Weiss. I'm with Bowen and Associates. Bear with me, I'm not feeling the best today, so if I have to jump off, my our Director of Design, Kyle Hulot, might take over for me. We are representing GALA, the Global Ambassadors for Language Academy. They're K-8 middle school charter school that does language immersion. They are currently renting a space on Lorraine and West 136. This is to renovate a building that they acquired from CMSD at 3349 West 125th Street. Next slide, please. They are located in the Lorraine Variety Landmark District. between West 125th and West 123rd to the north of Lorraine. Next, please. Views from West 125th. Next. And from West 123rd. Next. Down the street to the rear of the property on the east and the west side. This is the front going south toward Lorraine. And the full elevation on the front. Next. We're doing a full renovation of the building. We are not doing any additions. We will be, as you can see, most of the lot currently is paved with a little bit of lawn in front of the building on West 125th Street. We will be grinding down all the pavement and renovating that. Next, please. Showing some existing conditions. Part of the scope will be to remove the graffiti and the paint that was used to cover up some of the graffiti. We will use the Secretary of Interior's recommendations for paint removal, providing mock-ups for all of those. We'll be cleaning cleaning all the sandstone sills and lintels and all the coin bricks, coin blocks. We will be spot cleaning the brick as necessary, tuck pointing and fixing the brick as necessary. We will be replacing all the exterior doors with Quaker doors, adding more lights to match some of the historic character of the building at its frame. And there's a lot of broken windows, so we will be reglazing the existing Graham replacement windows as much as possible and replacing in kind with the Graham metal windows.
Good morning, how you doing? I'm good, how are you? Good, good. So what's going on in the office?
You can see there's an area on the top left image where some of the brick has fallen out, and we will be filling that back in, replacing lintels as necessary. The scope of work for all the smaller, you can move to the next one. Next image, please. You can see some of the broken windows. There's a significant number of broken windows. We're still finalizing the roof scope. We will either be recovering or replacing after we do an investigation with a core sample. It is just now outside of warranty. The coping is, the replacement metal coping is in good condition, and the downspouts are in good condition with the scupper, so we will be maintaining those. Next, please. In the back of the building, we are renovating the auditorium, which is going to become a cafetorium, and those infill windows we will be reopening and providing new Quaker windows to match the existing. The existing metal guardrails that are still intact, like at the bottom left corner that you see, we will maintain and just repaint. The existing picket fence along the site, along West 125th and West 123rd, will be removed and replaced with a replacement aluminum picket, 4-foot aluminum picket fence. We will take out the retaining wall there and regrade to the site, to the sidewalk, and replace the fence. We are also replacing the fire egress stairs that you're seeing up at the top. That will be some kind of prefab system that we will paint black to match, similar to what's already there. This is the new layout. As you can see, we are reworking the parking lot. We're adding some play areas. There's an existing play area to the north of the site that we will be maintaining and providing new surfacing. We will be relocating another playground from their current site, which is the one that you see on the south side, and resurfacing in that area, and providing a half court and a multi-function play area to the west of that. Per the comments from the advisory committee review, we have updated this plan to kind of extend the lawn south towards the playground area, so that will align with the face of the building and extend further, so that way it continues on the lawn. There will be 10-foot fence around the court in the middle of the site there, between the court and the parking lot, and then also between the court and the adjacent residential areas. Otherwise, we will be replacing along the north and south sides. We'll be replacing with the 6-foot just wire fence. Chain link wire fence. Let's keep going. Another comment that the advisory committee had made was to reduce the amount of pavement in the front entry. So we will be kind of keeping the existing pavement outline and moving the bike racks to the north by the drop-off area where the trees are on the northwest side. Next. And we do have an updated landscape plan and tree preservation plan, so we will be submitting for PETDOT review this week for that, with all this other updated civil for that review. Elevations, as I said previously, we are not adding anything. We're replacing glazing as much as possible, replacing all the doors, and wherever a full, we are popping out windows as needed to replace lintels, and we will replace, reinstall those as we can. If not, we will replace with the Quaker windows to match existing. We're using VRF units for all of the classrooms, so any of the units are on the roof are pushed back far enough so you don't see them. Next. Section through, there's a gym on the lowest level and the cafetorium. We are putting an overbuild in there to flatten that out, just to get a sense of what we're doing on the inside. Next. And these are just the plans to show what we're accomplishing on the inside. Oh, on the north, if you want to go back, the north, plan north of this, there is a old coal room that we will be abandoning. So we'll fill that in and cover it over and abandon per civil notes. Next. Replacing or refinishing existing floors, and reconfiguring bathrooms, adding an elevator. That's the main scope of work on the inside. Next. We will also be replacing all of the existing ramps in the back with a brick sidewall with a stone cap and a guardrail, a metal guardrail on the top. So we'll try and maintain the dimensions as much as possible and add a little bit of extra height on the guardrail just to get us to code. Next. Next. Locations of RTUs, pulled in so that they are not seen from the exterior. rendering, exterior rendering. Next. I think the rest of these are just renderings. And again, we will show the pavement kind of reduced up front and add some lawn along West 125th. Full interior views, what we're trying to achieve. And I think after the next, I think there might be 2 more interior shots, and then that'll be the end of the presentation.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll then move on to Design Review Advisory Committee recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project was reviewed by the Historic West Cleveland Design Review Advisory Committee on June 5th. They reviewed it as a concept schematic, so they did not take action. They did have a really nice discussion about the trees and landscaping, as Ms. Weiss noted that they would prefer more landscaping, reduce the paving, just have more nature, even to the point of like painting the ground on the play areas green, just to bring in that natural look. They did mention possibly retaining some wrought iron fencing or salvaging whatever is possible, and had a discussion about the windows and how more information is going to be needed for like the lintel and wall damage that's there, as well as noted, mentioning that the front entrance has sandstone that they'd like to see retained as much as possible. It is slightly cracked, but just kind of keeping that original sandstone at the front entrance on West 125th. But overall, they were very supportive of the changes that are proposed, and looking forward to seeing it come back for final.
Excellent, thank you. And then staff recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff is always happy to see a school reused as an as a school again. It's not too frequently that we see a historic school that's I guess not exactly repurposed, but just continue its use. Given that this is a historic tax credit project and the SHPO is involved, we don't have too many concerns that the final project will adhere to the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. But we look forward to seeing those details and solutions develop, particularly as answers to the water intrusion question are resolved. I would just mention, as it came up in the Design Review Advisory Committee meeting, that staff would also like to see the tree lawn reinstituted, perhaps even with trees planted on it. Really just any softening of the site through landscaping we think would be helpful to this project, but their treatment of the building seems appropriate and in keeping with these standards. So look forward to seeing the final details. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you for those comments also. We'll open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Mr. Strickland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think the proposed renovations, restoration to the building are very sensitive to the existing architecture and very complementary. So I think they've done an excellent job with that. I would agree. I think it was the Design Review Committee's comments. The existing metal fence, wrought iron fence, appears to be in pretty good condition. Although the wall that it's resting on in some areas certainly looks like it's in significant decay. But if they could remove the walls, sections that cannot be repaired, and then reset that existing fence, that's something I would like to see considered in the final plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. I would echo what Mr. Strickland said. I think this is a very sensitive, and staff, this is a very sensitive restoration, but I'm very fond of the wrought iron fence because it appears to be in fairly good condition. I think anything that you could save or relocate and to save would be greatly appreciated. And I do agree with the committee's recommendation. The final colors chosen for the base of the playground areas. If it was a more natural color versus the white or gray that's used right now. I think that would just also just enhance the design. And then my only question is, I'm sorry if I missed this, what color will the windows be painted in the future? Or is that still under discussion? Indoors.
Yeah, they are currently a cream color and they would remain that color.
All right, and your doors?
I believe we were going to match the trim color, the cream. If there are other recommendations, we will definitely, take that into consideration.
Okay, I think the cream windows is very appropriate. I like the color for the doors. I just wonder how they'll hold up in this type of environment. But I think you could work with staff for the final colors of the doors. But overall, I'm in support of the project.
Thank you. I do have a question. So can I ask a question back to the group?
Sure.
Some of the pictures of the fencing might be a little misleading. A lot of it is rusted out and falling apart. I guess, is there a level of damage that you're comfortable with keeping in order to maintain the historical authenticity of the existing?
That's a great question. I mean, I know that there's some, you need to extend and have the appropriate height around the playground areas. I think that's where we just like to partner with you to look at the fence and understand the condition of it and what can be reused and not reused. I think, my preference would be finding strategic places, like were you putting a fence on the, I'm sorry, what's the back street, 125th? Is that correct?
The back street is 123rd.
123rd, are you putting fencing along there or just in front of the building?
Yes, on both sides.
Yeah, if there's places that you could strategically reuse it, ideal would be in front of the building where it is right now. But then you'd have multiple materials. So my preference would be, if it can't be reused on the front, then, can we consolidate it and reuse it on the rear? But I think you could work with staff once you have evaluate the fence condition to see how much is usable and what is, not restorable. Mr. Strickland, do you have feedback? Or Mr. Musson, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess that's basically going to say what you just said. Staff is happy to work with the applicant on finding the best strategic areas to use that, the fence that is still in good enough condition to reuse, particularly around the entrance and other main focal points we think would be helpful. But that is a discussion we're happy to have offline with the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Musson.
And
Did
Madam
that
Chair,
answer? Yep.
I'll just add that I agree with Dan's comments and that reusing after an evaluation of what portion of the fence can be reused, I would say concentrate on the primary facade on West 125th and find an appropriate area along the fence line to transition to the aluminum fence once you've exhausted rehabilitation of the existing fence.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Did that answer your question?
Yes. Yes, it did.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Lozier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to add to the fence conversation. There are a number of companies that can also repair this type of fence. It's a fairly simple wrought iron fence. So investigating, repair in areas that are, that are in disrepair now, I think may provide more material for reuse as the project continues to evolve. So thanks. But I'm also in support of this project and excited to see it move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Lozier. Any further questions or comments from the commission? Not seeing any, since this is a concept design, does the applicant feel like you've received enough feedback from the commission to continue the completion of your design?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, then we look forward to seeing you in the future with the final design. You're welcome. And that concludes our concept design reviews for today's meeting. We'll then move to design review advisory committee appointments.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. We've received a design review advisory committee nomination from Councilman McCormick for one Alex Frondorf. Mr. Frondorf's resume has been forwarded to all of you for your review prior to the meeting, so hopefully you've had the opportunity to review it. I know we just made appointments to our design review advisory committees in late March, so I wanted to take a moment to explain why Mr. Frondorf's resume was not included in those and why we're seeing it now. We'll start with just a little bit of background. After roughly a year of research and working to develop the new design review advisory committee geographies and policies, we presented our proposed changes to you here at the Landmarks Commission in February. February 22nd, I believe, was the date. After that, Director Wong and I both sent out emails to all the current members of the design review committees, both city planning and landmarks, informing them of the changes and requesting that they submit their resumes if they were interested in serving on the soon to be established new design review advisory committees. Landmark staff followed up on those requests by discussing the changes in the design review meetings and answering questions about the new geographies and appointment standards. We also reached out to the CDCs and updated them not only on the new proposed geographies, but also the new standards and policies, including that all paid CDC staff would no longer be permitted to be voting members on the design review committees, sharing the same, the CDC service area. To basically, if you're a CDC servicing an area, you can't be a paid member of that CDC and be a voting member of that design review committee. And we also said that we'd only be permitting one CDC board member from any given CDC on any one design review advisory committee. Typically, our contact with the CDCs is through staff and not the board members, so we didn't reach out to any of the CDC boards, but just relied on the CDC staff to share any information they felt pertinent with their boards. Although we went through all that, it sounds like some of the committee members thought that the resume request was just an administrative cleanup issue and didn't realize that we were doing all new appointments to the newly created regions. Not sure where the confusion arose, but it does seem like that was the case. As Mr. Frondorf did not submit his resume by the deadline. I will note that more than 80% of the former design review committee members did submit their resumes for consideration on the new regional design review advisory committees. At our February meeting where we shared the new geographies, staff also shared our proposed design review advisory committee membership standards. As I mentioned, including the one, that there would only be one board member from any given CDC on any given design review advisory committee. Our goal was really to make the committees more equitable. Under the previous design review committee setup, we had multiple CDC board members on the former Ohio City and Little Italy design review committees. After we presented the new design review advisory committee geographies to the commission and explained our new committee membership standards, we had multiple board members from Little Italy Redevelopment Corporation apply for their design review advisory committee membership. In that case, we asked Little Italy Redevelopment Corporation to choose which of their board member applicants they wanted to represent their board. So they made a recommendation to us. We passed that on to the Landmarks Commission, and you guys made your appointment based on that input. Since we only received one resume from an OCI board member, it's an individual who was also on the previous committee and is a degreed architect who works in the field of historic preservation. So that seemed straightforward to us, and we didn't have to decide which OCI board member to recommend or seek formal recommendation from the OCI board or staff, since there did not seem to be any issue with the new standards and the one board member standard in the case of the historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee. I will note that Mr. Frondorf has served for, I believe, roughly 4 years on the previous iteration of the Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee, which was called the Ohio City Design Review Committee. As someone who staffs that committee, I can say that Mr. Frondorf has been a valued member of the committee. His attendance is very good, and he always has thoughtful insights. Mr. Frondorf is an active member of his block club and the acting president of the OCI board. In discussions regarding this nomination, his role as the acting president of the OCI board has been mentioned as a concern. So we've invited Mr. Frondorf here with the hopes that he can answer any questions or clarify anything that needs clarifying for you guys. Long story short, we received Mr. Frondorf's nomination and placed it on the agenda of the commission so you can exercise your authority to decide if you want to appoint him. From my perspective, there are a few options that the commission could explore. One is to throw out our newly created one board member standard that was put into effect only a few months ago and was meant to keep our design review advisory committees independent and not feel like subcommittees of the CDC boards. Before we enacted the standard, we had one design review committee where more than half of the committee members were also board members of the same CDC. That felt like it was giving undue influence to the board and the board members on our committee and to the board itself on our committees. So another option would be to put Mr. Frondorf on a wait list until there are no other OCI board members serving on the design review committee, or he's no longer on the board himself. This is how we handled the multiple resumes we received from board members of Little Italy Redevelopment Corp. Essentially, when one board member who's currently on the Ohio City or Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee is either no longer an OCI board member or no longer a member of our design review committee, it would allow for Mr. Frondorf to be appointed. This action would not prohibit Mr. Frondorf from serving on another design review advisory committee in the meantime. As I said, Alex is a valued member of the former iteration of the committee, and we'd welcome his membership on and input on any of our design review advisory committees. The final option I see would be to maintain the new standards, but noting an exception to it. If you decided to take this route, I'd ask that you specify the mitigating circumstances that are causing you to make an exception to the standards so that we have good precedent moving forward and that staff is able to understand where our policies and standards sit and how we should carry them out as we move forward. So with that, like I said, you guys all had his resume. So Mr. Frondorf is here. I'm here if anyone has any questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Musson. I guess I will start us off. Mr. Frondorf, what is the term of your board membership and or presidency of the OCI board?
Good morning, Madam Chair, and thank you. It is right now undetermined. The officer elections will take place this September. And the reason we have an interim ED and an interim board chair is that Tom McNair, our former ED, was hired by the Bibb administration, and we are in a period of transition ourselves. And that has caused the interim nature of the board seat and the ED.
But the board membership, so in September, it will be determined if you are, will the full board go up for re-election in September, or is it just the board presidency?
I believe my seat will be up for election next fall, but the officer elections are this fall.
Okay. Okay.
And if I might volunteer a comment, but I'll wait until you have any other questions.
Sure, go ahead. If that's similar, related to that, go ahead.
Yeah, in speaking with Dan, I understand the nature and genesis of the policy on limiting the number of CDC board members on design review committees. Here, I don't think that concern is present for a couple factors. One, there are about 11 members in the Ohio City Design Review, and it would be impossible for 2 members to sway anything in an untoward manner. the two of your Landmark Commission members, Michael and Chris, served alongside me on the Ohio City Design Review before joining Landmarks Commission, and can attest to the independent nature of the way I approach things, both as a design review member and Nia Marinucci, who's also a member of the CDC. And there is no risk here that we are somehow steered by our membership with the CDC. And I've served for over 4 years on that design review committee, and no issue has ever presented itself. And where Ohio City had an interest, we duly recuse in each and every time.
Thank you for that feedback. I know that there was some discussion of Mr. Musson before I move on.
Oh, sorry, Madam Chair. I just wanted to share the director, Joyce Wong, just shared some comments with me that she wanted to share as she's not present, but as a voting member of the committee. She just did want to note that per the design review ordinance, we do seek guidance from the council members for appointment of design review committee members. So the nomination from the councilman is kind of what is driving this forward, and we welcome that input. And then she also wanted to share that from her perspective, we're really testing this new policy or standard that we set of having one board member, per CDC, per design review committee. She's suggested that, it might make more sense to have that number of CDC representatives at 2, and kind of that's where she sees the discussion going. Does it make sense to hold this policy? Do we want to change the policy by expanding it? So just wanted to share that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Musson. Mr. Strickland, I see your hand up. I will move to you before.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, planning director, I think, just took the same approach that I was going to suggest, in that, given that it's a typically 11-member committee, I don't think that 2 members that are representatives of the board of the local CDC would have undue influence over the entire design review committee. So I would suggest that the standard be modified to allow for up to 2 CDC board members to participate on the design review committee. That's my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Other questions and comments from the commission? Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Frondop's resume looks very strong. He looks like he's been very active in participating in his community. So, I would like to see him, his involvement continue. I just wanted to put this out. If we don't modify the new standard with the 1 board member, is there another design review committee where he can participate and then be put on a wait list, or is that not option available?
Mr. Musson? No, I think that was addressed to Mr. Musson first. Mr.
Yes,
Frondop.
yes, indeed it was.
Yeah, through the chair to Ms. Anderson. Yes, there are, we have 4 other design review advisory committees that meet at, I guess, various times, some evenings, some daytime committees. So there are other options, and I guess I did mention that potential to Mr. Frondorf at one point. He expressed his desire to really, be on the Ohio City, or the Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee, just based on his service with the previous Ohio City Design Review Committee.
Sure, that's understandable. That makes a lot of sense, because he has a history there and he understands what's happening in that neighborhood. So, I just wanted to put that out, but thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. I guess I will stay on that subject because I think, I am struggling a little bit, to be quite candid, with your presidency related to this. I think you have been a valued member, and I appreciate everything that you've brought to the city and would love to have you continue your impact on the city. But I'm personally struggling a little bit with that you are the president of the OCI board versus just a standard member. But I would love to have you continue on, as a member of an alternate committee, personally, because I think your influence could be greatly appreciated in other areas of the city, as much as it has been to date, in Ohio City. And then, when either your position changes in September, or the member, sort of configuration of the OCI board, the Ohio City Advisory Board Committee, sorry, can't get them all straight, changes, then, you could be on the wait list to come back to that committee. But that's my personal opinion, because I do appreciate and am open to having multiple members, but I personally am struggling just with the presidency. So, other thoughts and comments from other commission members? Mr. Strickland or Mr. Lozier? Oh, Mr. Sandberg. So, Mr. Strickland, you first. Oh, Mr. Strickland, you're muted.
I have a new iPad. I can't get used to it. So I don't think the standard restricts board members to be non-office holders of the board of a CDC to participate in the design review committee. So I personally don't have the same issue that the chair has with regard to his officer position of the board of the CDC. So when it's time to make a motion, I would put forth a motion that we modify the standard to allow 2 CDC board members to participate on the design review committee and to accept the nomination of Alex Frondorf to participate in the Historic Ohio City Design Review Committee. But I'll wait for further discussion before that motion's put forth. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Mr. Lozier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think Mr. Strickland put it, more eloquently than I was going to put it. So I just want to, second Mr. Strickland's comments.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lozier. Mr. Sandberg? Mr. Sandberg, you are muted if you're talking. I still cannot see or hear you. Mr. Sandberg, I see your hand up. There you go.
Thank you. First, I want to say being on the board with Alex at the Ohio City Design Review, I think he was definitely one of the more positive members and always contributing, and it was great experience being on the board with him. But I guess to the bigger point, I would question if we changed the rule for adding a second member, would that open a can of worms for other design review boards that were limited, such as the Little Italy board? Would we have to revisit the members on that board as well?
I'm assuming yes, but Mr. Musson, you can respond.
Yeah, through the chair to Mr. Sandberg, yes. If you guys did decide to change the policy from 1 member to 2, we would reach back out to, I guess, all of the other CDCs, make them aware of the policy revisions, and also reach out to council and make sure they're aware too. And if there were other nominations that came in instances where we already have a CDC board member on the committee, we'd still be bringing you those as nominations for you guys' appointment, and then describe the situations as those arise. But yeah, we would be reaching back out to all the other CDCs and applying this new standard across the board.
And so would that mean we would be rejecting a member that is currently sitting on a board? Is that correct? Potentially.
No, through the chair. No, if we change the policy to allow two board members per design review advisory committee, we don't have that circumstance now. We only have individual board members from any CDC on any committee. So with the ability to add someone, we'd just be essentially adding another, committee member is a board member. But I don't anticipate anyone being removed if you guys were to change the policy. I think, Carl, did you have some thoughts?
Yes, thank you. Just as a quick aside, the Historic Ohio City Design Review Committee is kind of unique to all of our 5, as it is basically 99.9% within one ward. So our other ones would not, they span multiple wards and have multiple CDCs. And I think that's part of the thing that we were looking at. So Historic Ohio City is unique to all of our design review regions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brunches. Mr. Stanberry, did you have any other questions? Or did that answer your question, I should say?
No, I guess to that point, do we have a limit of the amount of members on a board? And if we add a second CDC member, would that add a person to the limit of each board? Does that make sense?
I know what you're asking, I think. So I believe in Mr. Mustin, Mr. Brunges, and Ms. Beam can keep me honest. I think there's 11. The maximum number of members is 11. The average was, if I remember from your presentation before, was about 7. Is that correct?
Okay.
Or 8? So there
7
is
to 9.
7 to 9. So there you go. The average of 8. There's
Yes.
available seats, but I think the thing that it does open up, if there's multiple CDCs in a design review region, and we then say we can have up to 2 members from each CDC. If you have 3, I don't know the answer to this one, Dan and Carl, if you can, is it 2 or 3 in some regions that we have CDCs, like within the West, the far West design review or area? You could have a lot of board members that fill those seats if you have multiple CDCs and everybody took their 2 seats, is what I could see that this could open up. But that's me thinking a little bit too much quickly about this.
No, I think that is kind of my point as well.
Yeah, and through the chair, there are, like Carl was saying, this Ohio City is kind of a unique design review advisory committee in that it is all within one ward, but most of them do have multiple wards, multiple CDCs. We do have an 11-member limit on each of the committees. So, I guess we could have, it was starting to sound like a math problem there for a second when you were talking, you got me nervous. Essentially, if every CDC wanted to have 2 representatives from their organization, they could, between all the CDCs, they could make up an entire board or committee. We did just make appointments though, so I don't, unless we were to remove people or people to roll off in the board in the future, I don't see that as an immediate issue. But moving forward, after the current appointments in terms of expired, that could be an issue then.
Understand. So I guess I think we need to probably explore that a little bit more because the intent is to minimize or to assure that a board does not have the majority seats of a design review committee, advisory committee. I think that's the intent of this standard, is my understanding. Is that correct from staff?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again? I apologize.
My understanding is the intent of this standard is to at least for two things, to assure that the board does not have the majority seats of an advisory committee. And knowing that your typical 7 to 8, you want to keep it below the average, majority of attendees to these meetings. So that's where you started with 1. So I think we need to probably think about if we make an exception to this because Ohio City Advisory Committee is a little bit unique, where other committees, they have multiple CDCs that could fill those seats. So and to me, I think we need to explore this a little bit more before we put in the final language of the number of members. But I think there is this committee is unique. So I'm starting to ramble a little bit, so I will move on to Mr. Stanberry. I see your hand is still up. Did you have additional questions?
No,
Or-
I'm sorry. I forgot to put it down.
That's Mr. Lozier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess a couple of comments. The first would be if there was a limit of 2 per CDC, even in the areas where there's multiple CDCs, no one CDC would have a majority. I believe, and I don't know if that's, again, going back to the nature initially of how this was, the reasoning behind why this was enacted initially. The second point, which is escaping me at the moment, maybe it'll come back to my mind. But I'll hold until I can remember. Sorry.
All right, just put your hand back up when you remember it. Mr. Strickland. Mr. Strickland, you're muted again.
Thank you. Right. Thank you, Madam Chair. So it's still up to the Landmarks Commission to approve any proposed nomination for participation in advisory committee. So I think that administratively, we can decide if we think a particular advisory committee is being overloaded by representatives of the board of various CDCs. So I still think that it's not going to be that much of a problem to modify the standard. And I think it can be effectively managed by the commission as nominations are put forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Mr. Lozier.
Mr. Strickland took the words out of my brain. That's exactly what I was going to mention. So thank you, Mr. Strickland, again.
It's all about teamwork.
My pleasure. We're all on the same team.
All right. Any additional questions or comments? All right, not seeing any, then I would ask for a motion, and I would just put it out there in 2 ways that either we can make a motion related to modifying the standard, or we can accept the nomination as a exception to the standard based on the unique configuration of this committee.
Madam Chair, if I may interject, staff would, I think the latter is the preferable one
Preferred.
to us.
And that is so that it allows the ability for precedent and to just have that discussion based on each case by case basis. Is that it, Mr. Musson? Similar to what we're doing here versus the unilateral, application that would require you to revisit every CDC?
Correct, Madam Chair. Yes. Yeah, that's a good summary.
Okay. All right, Mr. Strickland.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I disagree with and I think as an example, Little Italy wanted to put one board member nominations, and that was not allowed. And I think that's another example of a design review committee that would potentially benefit from additional CDC representation on that committee. So my motion is to modify the standard to allow up to 2 CDC members to participate on any design review advisory committee. And if it has to be a separate motion, I'll modify it, but I will include in my motion to accept the nomination of Alex Forndorf for participation on the Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee. Thank you.
All right, so before I ask for a second, I'm going to ask for clarification from Mr. Musson. Do those need to be, can those be together or are those 2 separate motions?
I think separate would be preferred, and then just in language, appointing Mr. Frondorf as opposed to accepting it. You guys would be actually making an appointment. So if there's a motion to can move forward with that, it should be a motion to appoint him to the Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, and then specify for the length of the term, which I think when we did this a few months ago, that we did all 2-year terms, so that would make sense as well.
Okay,
Okay,
so I'll
so let's-
modify my motion.
Let's start with the first one first, the first portion of your motion. Let's move forward with that first, which was modifying the standard to a 2-year restriction of 2 officers.
They're
Do you
not
agree,
officers,
Mr.
not
Strickland?
officers, no,
Or 2 members, sorry.
board members, right? Yes. My motion is to modify the standard to allow up to 2 CDC board members to participate on any design review committee.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Strickland. So we have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Sandberry.
I guess I was hoping maybe we could modify the motion and say 2 members of a CDC, but not more than, a majority CDC members in total on the board. Is there a way we can modify that? Limit it to, 5 CDC members per board or something like that, where there's not a majority.
Yeah, so if I understand you, Mr. Sandberry, you're basically saying 2 for many, 1 board is fine, but you want to ensure that the total member of a design review advisory committee's membership is not made up of some mix of CDC board members.
Correct. A majority of CDC board members. I don't know how what the language needs to be to say that, but yes.
Mr. Strickland, we'll start here and then we'll ask for some advice depending on your response from our legal team. Mr. Strickland, is that something you'd like to modify your motion to include?
I agree with that suggestion very much. I think it's a very good suggestion. I would ask for clarification that some of the advisory committees are not fully populated. It allows for up to 11 members, but most do not have 11 members. So when we CDC board of petitions that be on filled positions on the advisory committee or the majority of the 11 seats available?
I think that's the slippery slope that this opens up, is that if we do a unilateral 2 for CDCs, you could have 6 members, let's say, that are from CDCs of the 11 membership. And if the full board is not, membership is not up to the 11 members, they could be the majority and or most of the advisory board, albeit
So I
representing
agree. So
different areas.
I would modify my motion to revise the standard to allow up to 2 board members from any CDC to participate with no total of CDC to equate to a majority of the filled positions on any advisory committee. So
Okay.
if there are vacant seats, the number of available CDC board member positions would be also reduced.
I would second
Okay.
that.
Right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Mr. Roberts, can you advise us if the language is appropriate as stated?
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I hope you could hear me okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, and it is. And I appreciate Mr. Sandberry's modification of Mr. Strickland's motion that has taken into account that those situations that potentially could arise with other DRACs of the outside of the historic city one. And I would defer to Secretary Munson and Carl Brunges and Jessica Beam on how they would manage this.
Mr. Mustin, since we're at the point of comments, go ahead. We have a motion and a second already on the table, so we're good from that point. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah, just wanted to, staff will evaluate what's passed here and figure out how to move forward with it. Of course, working with Mr. Roberts and our partners in City Council. So whatever you guys decide on, we will figure out a way to administer it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mussin. Any further discussion? All right, not seeing any. Mr. Strickland, I see your hand still up. Is that just still a remnant, or did you have additional comment before I move on?
I thought, but I'm just going to add that it's not a bad thing to have CDC members as representatives on this advisory committee. They've demonstrated repeatedly what committed residents they are with the level of involvement that they have with block clubs, their local CDCs, and then wanting to additionally participate on design review committees, I think is commendable. I don't think we're creating a bad situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. All right, not seeing any, was there any additional questions or comments from the commission? All right, not seeing any. Mr. Mussin. Oh, wait, Mr. Dreyer. Oh, go ahead.
Yes.
Mr. Mussin. Go ahead, Mr. Dreyer. Did you have a question? I see your hand going up and down. Sorry.
Yeah, that's because this new system is confusing me. I just want to say this. So Councilman McCormick has also introduced legislation at the last council meeting, sort of altering the way that these committees are appointed. And so that legislation is working its way now through the legislative process, and I believe it's out to the departments right now. Although I don't know, I just sent it to Dan because I don't know if he's had a chance to see it. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that whatever we do today, while I agree with Mr. Strickland's motion, it may be changed because this would be a code change.
And do you have any additional feedback you could give us to understand what the proposed legislation change is addressing or how it would modify?
As I remember, it basically, and I'll say this in a very charitable way, it inserts council into the appointment process. And so that's just what it does. I think that's the purpose of administrative review, and committee review is to really flesh out the details. But so that's, I guess that we could very easily later this year have to come back and change these policies again. I'm not trying to throw an obstacle up. I just want people to be informed.
Interesting. Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Dry. We appreciate that update. That's good to know. Mr. Musson? You're muted.
Thank you. Appreciate Mr. Dreyer's comments, and to that point, if things do change, we'll deal with them then. So I think you should still proceed as if we have an expectation that things won't change, just to keep business moving. For a little more detail, if I recall correctly from when I saw the legislation, though, it would reduce the number of design review advisory committee members to 7 per district, and it would give council 3 appointments. It would give you guys 4 appointments, and then there is a statement in there that additional members could be added with council getting the first pick. So if council decided they wanted to add an 8th member to a committee after 7 were seated, that would then allow you guys to appoint potentially a 9th and 10th. But if council doesn't start that adding additional people process, then you guys don't. So essentially you'd have 4 appointments for every committee. Council would have 3. And the way it was written, at least when I saw it, I think it states that there are, 7 members. So I think we would have to have full committees in order to operate. We wouldn't have the ability, like we do now, to have, less members than are legislated. So that's just my quick summary. Hopefully I got the details right, as it's not right in front of me. But we are aware of it, and obviously we'll be following it, and we'll look forward to any conversation about it outside of, I guess, this meeting.
Okay. Well, lots to come on that. I don't want to ask any questions because it's not in front of everybody, so that we're working with the document at hand. So let's stay focused on what is on the table. We do have a motion to modify the standards related to board membership, and we have a second. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Musson, please call roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Dryer?
Yes.
Mr. Dulick?
Yes.
Councilmember Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lozier?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Sambry?
Yes.
Mr. Strickland?
Yes.
Mr. Trosick?
Yes.
Lost Dr. Williams. So Ms. Trott?
Yes.
Yes. All right, Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
All right, then we do have to come back to the second item that initially you had made a motion. Mr. Strickland, would you like to proceed with your motion, or would someone else Somebody else do.
If I'm able, I would put forth a motion to appoint Alex Forndorf to the Historic Ohio City Design Review Committee for a term of 2 years.
All right, we have a motion. Do we?
I'll
Mr.
second.
Lozier. All right, thank you for that second, Mr. Lozier. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer,
Yes.
Mr. Duling,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Sandberry,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Reluctantly, no. It's not that I don't appreciate you on this board. I just would struggling with your presidency.
All right, Madam Chair, the motion to appoint Mr. Frondorf to the Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee for a term of 2 years passes by a vote of 8-1.
All right. Well, congratulations, Mr. Frondorf. We appreciate your past and your future contributions.
Thank you. And thank you for our consideration this morning.
That concludes our appointments for today. We'll then move on to reports.
Just a quick intro. So thank you, Madam Chair. We recirculated the kind of window replacement policy that we had discussed at our last meeting. So Ms. Beam is going to share with us the changes that have been made to it. But essentially we kind of took to heart your comments and tried to add some information about repair, but we found that it kind of became a slippery slope. You know what I mean? Like how much do you really get into in a policy document? We didn't want to turn into a window repair tutorial because there's kind of too much to cover. But in any case, I will let Jessica walk us through the revised policy, and then all three staff are here for any questions or clarifications you want afterwards. Although Carl's shaking his head that he's not here. I see him, so he is. So with that, Ms. Beam.
Right. Thank you, Dan. So we made some changes with anything. If you give me more time to change it, I will just move everything around. So the new one was circulated last week. Hopefully you had time to look at it. It's still in the same sections. We've got window types, which very briefly outlines different types of windows and making sure that it's clear that windows should be replaced with the same type that it was before. Slide. We also have a section on window materials as well as window features. Materials include a bit of like the lifespan of the different types of windows that are out there. Most commonly aluminum clad wood, composite windows, vinyl, fiberglass, with a little bit of like glass block, leaded glass, and skylights, just a variety of things. Window features kind of go into the different parts of window. We found in some cases there's a bit of confusion with the different names that are used for things. I know when you're talking about muttons, there's a few different ways that window companies refer to them as grids or grills or however they do. And so kind of going into a little bit of information about that and how they should be treated, as well as screens and like mechanisms and hardware, which are important parts of windows. We did add a new section of weatherproofing and energy efficiency in lieu of adding a full section on how to repair windows. Found that adding more of an energy efficiency, which is more of something that people look for when they're like, oh, well, I need to replace my windows. They're not very energy efficient. This is adding, hopefully, rephrasing that statement that windows are not energy efficient if they are original to the home and giving those ideas of how to make original windows more energy efficient, like adding storm windows, weather stripping, draft stoppers, functional shutters, or awnings that are, functional and appropriately installed, and kind of giving a little bit more background on that in their own section. We did add more information on the repair section. Now our main focus of this was in response to the projects that come before us, which are generally led by contractors. who are replacing windows. And so this is in the hopes of when we can send this out to council members or to CDCs to have more of an educational aspect, to be able to give them the terminology and understanding of the different ways that you can repair a window, as well as resources through the National Park Service on how to repair a window, since they have really great resources available. So I did move those resources up more into the middle of the document, as well as adding important parts about lead paint concerns on older houses, as well as like the most common repair issues that you have, which is if like the weights and pulleys are broken or the glazing and putty is, not secure anymore. And then kind of kept the same section on replacement with our recommended treatment. If repair is not an option, to original window openings should not be eliminated or altered. Existing dimensions and profiles should match glass and sash. Framing and trim should be replicated or retained as much as possible. The existing window style should be matched or an acceptable window option provided to replicate the appearance of the original window style. Divided light sashes and mullions should be matched with the same configuration, appearance, and depth on the exterior of the window. Ornamental and unique windows should be retained and not removed from their existing locations. A glass block window should have gray mortar, not white. Storm windows can be installed as appropriate weatherization method and should be unobtrusive and removable with no damage. And replacement storm should fit with or reflect the pattern of the window behind. So that way it's kind of stating that recommended treatment, preferably that would be what is happening. And then the last section would be application and review process, which is kind of defining that bit that Landmark staff can use as a way of determining projects that would go through the design review process to the local committee and then further on to Landmarks Commission with a little bit of the further information added at the end that has links to the Cleveland Aging and Disability Resource Center, lead hazard control through the City of Cleveland, Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, and the US EPA, which has very helpful information about lead abatement. And so that is our revised residential window repair and replacement guidelines or policy.
Excellent. And then I'll open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments on the revisions to the policy. I think overall this makes a lot of sense in making this, makes this a little bit more user-friendly for people's ability, depending sometimes to get all the way through a document. So pulling some of these things forward, I think it will help people take advantage of all the stuff you put in here, because I think it's great, personally. Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first want to really thank Jessica for all her hard work on this. This is really a huge step forward that we have something concrete people can refer to when addressing their needs for their windows. I'm really happy to see that we're including the maintaining of the original windows and how that can be done to make them safe and efficient. I think we often see window replacement companies coming to our meetings and giving us, exaggerated claims about, the superiority of their vinyl windows. So I'm happy to see that, this is being put forward, and I fully support this. Thank you.
Ms. Trott, if you're talking, you are muted.
You are right. I said, thank you, Ms. Anderson, for those comments. Is there any other questions and comments from the commission?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a statement.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, I just want to also agree with my colleague. I think Jessica done a great job with this information. And just so happened I had a resident in the Cleveland Shaker area, and she had questions about replacing her windows. And I suggested to her to call the Landmark Commission because I told her that that was something that was being discussed on the understanding with the residents in that area, that they just couldn't replace their windows. So she was calling about a grant. But I told her, due to the fact that she wanted that, she still had to follow up with the Landmark Commission to see which windows can be replaced or not. So I think this is an excellent summary for the residents to now understand if they have that at the CDCs and or at other areas in the community, they would know ahead of time what can be done. So I just want to applaud Jessica doing this.
Excellent. Thank you for that feedback, Councilman Gray.
You're welcome.
Mr. Strickland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree that this is an excellent document. It's going to be very helpful for us. I think it's also going to be very helpful for the residents. And I hope we can work on a way to get this broadcast or distributed effectively, perhaps through the CDCs, so that they have a document that residents in the community can reference and hopefully lead towards more rehabilitation of existing SASH rather than just tear out and replace, as is typically the case when you get a replacement contractor involved, because residents just don't understand what their options are for rehabilitation of existing windows. So yeah, if we could work on an effective way to distribute this proactively, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Any further questions and comments? Would someone like to put forward a motion?
Through the chair, what we're looking for is a motion to adopt the policy.
Thank you for that clarification. Would someone like to put forward a motion?
I move that we adopt the policy for windows.
Excellent. So we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
This is Alan, I'll second.
All right, thank you, Alan. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Musson, please call roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer,
Yes.
Mr. Dulick,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Sambury, Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tresick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes,
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
excellent. Then we'll move on to meeting minute approvals. There was one meeting minute that was circulated for March 14th, 2024. Does anyone have any questions or comments, or would they like to put forward a motion for approval? Mr. Lozier?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from March 14th, 2024.
Excellent. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Musson, please call roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer,
Yes.
Mr. Dulick,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Sambury, Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tresick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes,
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
excellent. All right, then we'll move on to administrative reports.
I guess just a thanks to everybody, the commission members, city staff, especially Carl and Jessica, and the applicants for their flexibility as we navigate the cyber situation that occurred earlier this week. And I guess brought us to remote location for this meeting. So thank you for everyone's flexibility. Also want to mention the HR acknowledgement forms that I sent out this last week that I had sent out previously. We do need original ink copies from you guys according to HR. So if you can mail those in, or if you want to pull up behind City Hall, I can grab them from your car, or if you need me to come get them, I'm sure we can figure out a way to get them, but we do need your signatures on those. So yeah, let me know how you prefer to handle that on an individual basis. I just also wanted to note that City Hall will be closed next week on Wednesday, June 19th for Juneteenth holiday. And in July, the Cleveland Planning Commission will be meeting the day following our commission meetings. So they're switching to the second and fourth Fridays just for July, but then in August they'll revert to their normal meeting of first and third Fridays of each month. And City Hall is closed to the public tomorrow as well, just yeah, in case anyone was planning on heading down. That is all I have.
All right, Dan, when are those HR forms due?
The deadline we received was June 7th, so sooner the better.
Okay. Excellent. Then I think we can all try to print it and mail it in to get you the forms.
Yes.
Did you email everyone, or some people did sign in person previously, correct?
Yes, yeah, it seems like whatever we turned it in person last time, I am not sure what happened to that. I think it got put in a stack of printed out ones, and I don't know. But yeah, I think we just need everyone's again. So I apologize for any inconvenience, but yeah, nobody seems to have the originals at this point, and copies won't cut it. So a couple of you did send them in last week, so I can send an updated email and let you know who I have and who I still need them from.
Okay, that would be great. Okay, excellent. All right, well, I think that is all we have for today. So we'll adjourn our meeting and see everyone at our next meeting on, what is that, the 27th?
Correct, the 27th.
27th. All right, so hope everyone has a great day.
All right, you too.
Take care.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Everyone. I know.
Bye-bye.